Rich's story as well, as he even talks about how he got writing and how his mother spoke over him, even at 10 and 11 years old, how he was going to be. Okay, Russ has got us recording and then he left.
Yeah.
So even as an 11-year-old boy, so Mandino, I don't know his name, but I don't know the nationality of Mandino, but his mother was Irish and spoke over him. She says, "You're going to be a writer, a great writer." She spoke that over him. And so to write. And here he even says, "The road to success for me has been a long, arduous journey strewn with obstacles, travel." And as he talked,
I think that's pretty interesting that all of his obstacles and hurdles were created by himself.
and he wrote his first book with his wife, his first wife, and failed so miserably that he lost everything. He lost his family. He was a drunk. He was living on the street. And then he met someone else who believed in him and who he married, but he remarried, but he, not his 40
Hold on a second.
birthday.
This is important. It says, "Eventually I lost everything that was important to me. And one day, as a lonely bum, peering at a small handgun in Cleveland pawn shop, found myself contemplating suicide. I didn't buy that gun, although its tiny yellow tag was marked only $29. And it says no guts." No, it takes guts to face this world.
It
Anyway.
does.
And so it's interesting as he's writing this story. And then the history of this is that he finally got it together. And while he wanted to be a writer, what he ended up being was a writer, getting into an insurance company, and his skills came out. He started writing for the insurance company, and that's where The Greatest Salesman in the World came out from. So it's fascinating. I mean, and it quickly happened. They had dedicated the book to Clement Stone, so we should probably read some things by Clement Stone. And when Clement Stone read his book, he said, "Your book is the most inspiring book I've read since Magnificent Obsession. Please see me as soon." Well, at that point, Clement Stone purchased 10,000 copies of The Greatest Salesman in the World to give to his employees and salesperson in his company and to its shareholders. So as he's starting this journey and starting these books, he's not just writing a simple story that he created. He's talking about the things that he's learned along the way Rich DeVos with Amway sold hundreds of thousands of books. I mean, how many of us have been in Amway, and how many of us have had that book recommended to us and read it or not read it? I don't remember if I did or not. I think I had that one. I mean, it's an easy book to read. It's fun to listen to. But then he goes on. So the greatest secret in the world, the greatest salesman, then followed by The Greatest Secret and The Greatest Miracle, will all, he said, an essential ingredient in The Greatest Miracle in the World is a memorandum from God to you. Said, anyway, it's certainly a spiritual book. And anyway, he said, did the events that you describe in The Greatest Miracle in the World, well, that's about the miracle. So he goes into that. So starting The Greatest Salesman, it gives extra meaning to it. Having all of these, and clearly I've got some yellow highlighting in this book, and then I've got some little black person with this. It doesn't look as clean as it did from the last people I got it from, but this one's staying with me anyway. So, hello.
So, hey, welcome, Caesar, and Maria.
Good morning.
So, what did y'all pick up of the first chapter? Anything really stand out in the first chapter? It's not very long.
Or even the first 5 chapters.
Yeah.
The first chapter for me, I look back over my history of employment. I look back over, my upbringing, my experience in business, the things, that I've seen even working with family. Um, and it just makes me realize the world isn't following these principles. I see so much greed. I don't see, imparting these principles, even like giving away so much, in the
Yeah.
first chapter where Erasmus, is like, Hafid says, to Erasmus that you thought it was foolish even when I told you to take half and give to the poor. And you just don't see these principles in the world today. And it's funny because Mark is my husband's really on. He just has such a desire, and when he started his podcast, a lot of this was educational. But now it seems to be like we're just introduced to so many amazing people who've accomplished things so tremendously. And one of the commonalities or the themes that we're seeing is the giving back. And so interviewing and pulling on those people and how they've attracted, people that have worked for them for 30 years or 40 years or 20 years or 15 years. I think it's a little bit of a different mindset of instead of me, 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 me. And the common thread throughout, and I've only gotten through 3 chapters, but the common thread is that if you're only working for wealth, it's what's the purpose of it? You may not make it just for the wealth aspect. So it just truly gives me something much greater to aspire uh, to be able to give, what's my passion to sow into. And I have many, but yeah, so that just really spoke to me. Looking at my experience in the business world versus and the masses versus the few, and then what I want to be and the legacy that I want to leave, is sowing into others.
That is such an amazing point that you're bringing out, Cheryl. The commonality among all those people that you're interviewing is there's something that they want to impact that's outside of themselves. There is a natural desire for us to change the world around us in some aspect. And to hear that what has come of the radio show has just been a revelation of what it is. It's that what is it that you want to do? It's that how are you going to impact? And that's amazing.
Well, and how, even in the first chapter, it begins, you have wisdom and you have a servant, right? But they can see, wisdom, the leader, considers himself his best friend, his servant. And he says, even when we began, you considered it foolish. Have my principles proven accurate? Will you honor me in this last request?
Right.
I mean, how many of us want that mentor?
Exactly. Exactly. Man, that is amazing. It's let's see. What else is standing out to you guys about this first
What I'll
or
say
second chapter?
to add to Shara, that's exactly right. So, right, you were saying that they were what a wonderful mentor that was. And in Babylon, like, right, too, like to share that information. In Babylon, that guy did the same thing. What was his name? Akra or something like that. Where-
Arcad.
yeah,
Arcad.
okay. So
God.
when yeah, remember when they first were on their way, and he's like, "Oh, well, we don't know how to do this, so let's do, me and you, we're gonna go." And then they're like, "Oh, wait, let's find these other people and see if we can all get, mentored by that sharing the wealth, I guess, as you could say."
Right, right. Pretty interesting. Um, there's he begins to tell Erasmus what his desire is as far as dispersing all of his riches. What did you think of that?
Well, my thought's probably a lot like Erasmus, sire, but you're the greatest in the world. You act as if it's your end days.
Right, right, right.
Not only that, it's like, it's not a what about me, but it's like, now what? If you're giving everything away, what are you doing? And, there's well, when you've poured everything into somebody else and all of a sudden that door seems closed, it's not necessarily a selfish what about me, not from a greedy perspective, but it's like, now you see your whole life flash before your eyes because it's like you're running into a brick wall. And what are you going to do now? Not to mention that the person that you've loved and served is saying, no, I don't need you anymore. So how is he feeling about it, Erasmus, and where does he go from there with it? And it's fascinating to see this whole process.
I hate to say it, but what I thought of was, what if Amazon shut down next week?
A lot of people
Boy.
would be really unhappy. The
Well, yeah,
businesses
well,
outside would be very busy all of a sudden.
yeah, this is kind of the same thing that's happening here. Amazon is shutting down, and all of the greatest empire of sales in the whole world is just it's not necessarily going to close down, but it's going to immediately change into they may not have the same goods. They may not have the same reach and the ability that the company had before. So it's certainly going to impact all of his customers. And that's kind of where my head went. Sorry about that. But everything we do impacts other people.
So with what Jeanette just said, I think it was right before you, Doug, and this book, the way I relate to it, you guys, my whole 2024 just flashed before my eyes, and I read this book maybe about almost I'd probably say about maybe about 10-15 years ago, and it's important that I remember that because when I read it, I didn't realize until you guys are describing it. I literally did that. I poured, and I was told I don't need you anymore. And so when they told me that without saying it, I hit that wall and my cup is empty. So what happens when that happens is fury and rage. And then I have to build back up because I didn't expect that. Now I'm not, I mean, I'm a little surprised because I would think that the people would know better, especially knowing them all their life. But when you remove that and you just go back to simple and basic, then I'm like, you know what? I have everything I need. I have God. I go, and my cup is going to fill up faster than all his future cups. And that's all I need to focus on. So if I keep pouring into myself, do I pour into everyone else? And with my life experience, then I don't need to worry about anything else because God provides. And I just have to show up every day. So this book, it's interesting that it's circled back, and I live that. And being left with nothing material wise, it's not a bad thing because I got my physicality, I have my spirituality, and I have my mentality. Like I could move. I'm like, am I? Basically, it was just my feelings were hurt, but my vitality is there. So I just gotta go around, um, and it helps you like rediscover like who do I want to work with, and just be more careful and just prepare for my future better. Also,
Right.
so it's a
Rebuilding. Come
rebuilding.
up
Yep.
like Phoenix, Erica. You are.
Oh,
You are.
thank you.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, how many times, a lot of times we hear stories and testimonies like yours, Erica, and it's like, okay, you've done what you can there, and now they're finished with this part, and you've poured out. And now, what I'm seeing in here, the next part is that he said, Hafid now has Erasmus set up for life because Erasmus already knows how to run it. He's just run it for somebody else. Now he's going to be operating it for himself because um, he's getting 50,000 gold talents, the palace and the warehouse from his mentor. And so now and Hafid can give it to him. One, as you have done, Erica, mastered the art of living not for yourself alone, but for others. And the concern has stamped you above all as a man among men, or as a woman among women, among leaders. So, Erasmus has to he has to regroup. He can do the things he's already been doing, and he's already had the example. So this is pretty amazing to see that.
It's
I,
so
Because you've been
unspoken.
given the 50. Go ahead.
What you're saying, it's unspoken. He when he told him what he was given him, it's unspoken what he can do with it. So it's truly up to Erasmus to make that assessment, to have the mindset of, if I've got a palace and a warehouse and I have the funds, I am the distributor. I am the one that can go and then purchase, because he gave the merchants their own business and allowed them to have the funds to buy out what they currently have available, correct? But the merchants, and this is where my history comes from. I grew up in a wholesale world. And so the source is not where the retailer or the merchant goes. They have a middleman. And back in the 70s, when all this began, or at least when I began in the business world, there were 7 to 11 levels before it got to the retailer. Today with Amazon, we're far more direct, but we're not buying quality. We're buying what's accessible, what's in front of us, what's put in front of us, like by AI, right? So Erasmus was giving something very unseen if he chooses. And then as we progress through the chapters, and this is just like, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but he says, Pathros, Hafid's, mentor, the one that helped him, says true wealth is of the heart, not the purse. And then where Hafid learned the truth, the foundation of this, Hafid says, art thou not wealthy, sire? And the old man smiled at Hafid's boldness, and he said, so far as material wealth is concerned, there is only one difference between myself and the lowliest beggar outside of Herod's palace. And I think only the beggar thinks only of his next meal. I think only of the meal that will be my last. Do not aspire for wealth and labor not only to be rich, strive instead for happiness, to be loved, to love, and most important, acquire peace of mind and serenity. I'm like, that's like the foundation. If we can live in that, as Erica was kind of talking about, you know, you don't need all of these things. But here's the secret, coming from a generation above. The wealthiest man of his time, who taught this young man, Hafid, who's now old, to be the wealthiest man or the greatest salesman of his time, is now positioning Erasmus to choose or to see or to have a bigger vision from where he is right now. Even though he has all the experience in the world, it's like us reading these books. We can take this knowledge. If we don't implement it, we're just there. It's just knowledge out here.
Yeah. Can I make a comment? So I kind of feel like it relates to it, but you tell me if I'm wrong. I was kind of feeling like maybe like it was about a detachment as well. Like I'm your mentor, right? Like it was the mentor that said they were done, right? Or who was it that said they were done? Was it the mentor or was
Be
it
the mentor.
The
the
employer,
mentor?
the
Right.
mentor.
So the mentor was like, here, I get like, right? Like, let's say, coach, stop doing this book club. Okay, you guys, I've given you the tools. We've worked it all through. You're good. You're done. And we'd all be like, what are you talking about? Not okay. Right. But, I think that's part of being a mentor or, teaching others. At some point, you have to let the bird fly, so to speak. Right. I don't know. Otherwise, maybe my detachment theory is just all wrong. I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to really read it, so I'm kind of going by what everyone's talking.
Awesome.
Well, Hafid is the rich palace owner and the company owner, and Erasmus has been his faithful,
Faithful, loyal servant.
loyal servant. Uh,
Business manager.
when he's care.
Yeah.
Yeah, Erasmus was the manager of everything. So
I think this is interesting. He says, I have always counted your friendship as my greatest asset. Man, what a thing to say to somebody who is basically a servant. That's what he's been his whole life. He's never really, he's just put himself in the position to serve this man with everything he has. And apparently he has a lot of ability because, man, he has overseen an empire. And then he says, what I now bestow on you is of little measure compared to your unending loyalty. Wow. How amazing is that to have, and think of it from Hafid's, I was thinking of it from Hafid's side too, to have somebody like that is that loyal to you for that long a period of time. That must be a very, very, very special relationship.
what's interesting in this also is Hafid has no children, according to this. There is no one else to give it to. It's not like he has to disperse it between his kids. So, but the pureness of the hearts of each of these, of both of these who are here, and bringing out the purity of it in the chapters yet to come. So each one has a place of just bringing out the purity of everything. And so that it becomes a pure faithfulness. And the beauty of it is that we don't need to worry ultimately, like Erica, about, we don't need to worry about being that pure, that committed to something. I mean, I'm sure that Erasmus had a family, but in all of those things, we could, from the way that I would say, we can trust God with our hearts to be that pure, because God uses that. It's everywhere. Just not to be afraid to love in the middle of, because even though it seems like it may not come back, or that it's been